I'd like to welcome everybody out to this May the 2nd public hearing. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Again, thank you all for coming out. If you will, please join me in a moment of silence for the officers killed. Okay. Thank you all. Appreciate it. Here today for our public hearing for the L&H Angels Trace Holding LLC conditional zoning request. We will try to move forward. There's a lot of people here. I want to make sure everybody gets to speak. I will stick to the 3-minute thing pretty general, not being disrespectful, but let's make sure everyone gets a chance to speak so we can move it on. We have some people in this back room here. I'm going to let them speak first since they're not sitting right here with the rest of us here. I'll ask everybody just be respectful. If the person in front of you or somebody says basically the same thing you're going to say, you're more than welcome to get up and say, hey, you know, I agree with this, whatever. But let's just try to keep from just repetitious the same thing, same thing. Let's be respectful of everybody's time and let's move forward with progress, please. But other than that, does any member of council have anything before we start? Everybody's good.
No.
All right. Do I have a motion that we go into the public hearing?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, public meeting's now open. Mike, if you will, any of them would like to come, if they'll come line up right there, please, sir. We'll let them speak.
Is there anyone here? Well, anyone here that would like to speak? Come with you. Come right with me. Come right up here now. Anybody else?
Let's go around to the microphone, sir.
Let's go right on and stand by there.
I'll have a 3-minute timer, not being disrespectful, but just
That's it.
want to make sure everybody gets a chance to speak. I'll wait till Mr. Mike sits back down. I'll start your time. You want to state your name and your address, and then you'll be able to go forward, okay?
Thank you,
Sir.
Mr. Mayor.
Carry on.
My name's James McKee. I live at 6945 Ascension Drive Southwest in Sunset Ridge. I am a member of the recently elected Sunset Ridge Master Association Board. We just took over from the developer a couple months ago. And I am here to express our community's grave concern about this development. We're worried about safety from traffic density that will come with this development. We're concerned about impact on the infrastructure. And by that, I mean fresh water, sewer, stormwater drainage, electricity, and even broadband network. All of these are real problems when you add so many more cars and people to the mix. And then when you add to it that, oh, by the way, with only one way in and out of this community as it's planned right now, if we have to evacuate for a storm, we've got serious safety problems, folks. And I urge all of you to consider all of that. And I'm speaking for the community when I say we'd really like you to disapprove this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next. Sir.
Tell them
Tell them to please hold
Okay.
any applause like that. Let's everybody be respectful of everything, please.
Hold on a second, please.
Yeah, just 1 second, buddy. How you doing, sir?
How you doing, sir? Mayor. Yes, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mr. Lopez. I reside at 8302 Breakers Trace Court, and we also have another property over at 7483 Haddington Place. So we have two properties. Yes, ma'am. I'm at 8302 Breakers Trace Court, and my other address is 7483 Haddington. So we have two properties. The reason why I'm addressing this is the stormwater management and drainage. Been a resident here for 13 years, retired from the United States Army military for 30 years. And I recently received a letter for the drainage, and in accordance with North Carolina law, the reasonable use rule with the drainage. If we go forward, if we're having issues in our little area where we live, our new property that we're developing over there at Ocean Ridge floods as well as where we're at. So as far as a good law, order, and discipline in the neighborhood, keeping unity in the community, I've always tried to be respectful and use the good common sense law. I'm just concerned about the stormwater management drainage, and I looked at the new UDO that you guys just approved, the 21 meetings that you had that just approved in 16 February of 2024. So we had to pay out of our pockets to have a engineer come through our housing development. And right now, the water, according to what the law says, the person on the lower estate must receive and pass the water from the higher estate. So my issues is the drainage when it becomes a drainage issue. So when I start getting letters from the town and I start having to, after 13 years, I don't want to deal with this with my new house that's being built over at Ocean Ridge. So that's my issues and concerns, and hopefully we can have some recommendations because right now I already have a culvert under the driveway and it's overflowing like it's supposed to, the V-hole like it's supposed to, and now I'm being written up for not having a hole in my driveway. So I already have two. So my issue is drainage. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the back?
Sir.
Anyone there?
Oh,
Yeah, come on around, sir.
Just come around this way.
My name is Richard Dickey. The address is 1611 Palomar Drive in the new development. And my question is simply this. We have heard from our area, in the adjacent area that's under development, under planning, sawing and tree cutting, and we're not sure what that is about. Does anybody know? On the property that's the question, we've heard trees falling and sawing of trees. Does anybody know what it's about? That's my question.
There is the old Jaguar lair. Logan Homes is developing that, right? The area that's not affected by this angel trace. Yeah. Okay.
There's also been some surveying going on and things like that. Adjacent area.
Yeah.
Is that the last one you think in the back?
Check
Double,
again.
yeah, double check, please. Good. All right. We'll begin in here. Anyone that would like to speak? Come on, sir. both of y'all be 1 and 2, okay? Thank you.
Good afternoon, Jerry Reynolds, 1326 Harbor Watch. I'm also an owner at Jaguar's Lair. Since the first presentation on this application back in January, I've had a few conversations with Mr. Logan. I think he's a nice man, trustworthy. Based on my research, I think his family business is reputable and they produce a fine product. However, as a victim of the well-known Jaguar's Lair scam, I can only hope that the Logan Group going forward will work very closely with the legacy Haddington Place owners. As for my comments to you, I have two. First of all, I want to commend first the planning board members on having the courage to do the right thing after exhaustive work on this application. The planning board vote to recommend a denial of this request was the right decision and sets forth a new avenue for future planning boards. The planning board demonstrated significant leadership with their decision by making the people and the community their primary focus. Therefore, I challenge the council to follow the lead of the board, the planning board, and make the people a key part of your decision that you'll be making. My second point is I ask the council to also follow the lead of the Brunswick County Board of Commissioners, whereby they took a smart and fair approach to require the NCDOT, New Development Traffic Impact Analysis, to happen before a final development is made on any large application. Specifically on April 1st, the commissioners voted 5-0 to require the traffic impact analysis to be conducted before the large development applications can be approved by any planning board. In short, they realized that the current approach is illogical and they corrected it. Albeit there are many variables in making this decision, I ask the council to work with our attorney and staff to find a way to change our current process for the TIA for Sunset Beach in general and specifically for this variance. We need to do the right thing here. In closing, obviously the decision in this application will have an enormous impact on Sunset Beach. I call on you to act to save Sunset Beach from out of control overdevelopment. I ask the council to listen to what the people want and make the right decision for the community and our future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bobby Leonard, 108 Discovery Lake Drive. He already addressed the Brunswick County Board Commissioners' decision. And in light of this decision, it is imperative Sunset Beach adopt this approach. There is no justifiable reason not to do so. The residents of Sunset Beach deserve nothing less than safe and well-maintained roads. Noted in past edition of the Beacon, current roadways would likely be inadequate if Logan Homes' application is approved as written. Also note the proposed commercial parcel on 904 at the intersection of Old Georgetown, a hazardous intersection. The proposed 60% increase has garnered significant opposition from residents and no evidence of positive support for this increase. There is no discernible advantage to our community to surpass the currently approved 1,034 single-family homes. Logan Homes proposes a median lot size of 8,000 square feet. Be clear, this does not preclude 5,000 square feet or less lot sizes. We oppose any lot size less than 7,500 square feet, which is already a compromise of our UDO's 10,000 square feet stipulation. While Mr. Frank attempts to engage in discussion regarding other jurisdictions, it is important to recognize that we are not those jurisdictions. We are Sunset Beach, and our UDO has specific setback requirements that must be strictly adhered to because they are minimal. The recent UDO rewrite involved a substantial investment of billable hours. While the rewrite was undoubtedly important, it is equally crucial to adhere to the current UDO. If the requested changes are approved, they would entail significant compromises and conditions effectively altering our UDO. It is essential to consider the purpose of the UDO and whether ordinances should be adjusted to accommodate every developer who enters our town. In addition to traffic and density, the increase of impervious surfaces may exacerbate drainage issues. North Carolina currently requires treatment of 1.5 inches of runoff, which is insufficient. The current EMS, fire department, and police department resources may be strained by the expansion of ETJs, placing a disproportionate burden on Sunset Beach taxpayers. What about the evacuation routes? The current approval of 1,034 homes is sufficient, and all lot sizes and setbacks should adhere to the town of Sunset Beach's UDO. A traffic impact study must be required before consideration of any type. Thank you.
Thank you.
Somebody like to be next?
My name is Richard Tash, 510 Woods Court. I'm here today to question taxation, I guess is the best way to start off. I mean, they're going to be putting 1,000 houses into that property, and it's my understanding that they are outside of our taxation, so they will not be paying any taxes to the town for what they build. Is that correct? That's correct. Okay. And just to think about it for a minute, the fire department, the police department, the public works department, all of them are going to be heavily impacted by these people, because as soon as a call comes into for a fire, who's going to come? Sunset Beach, and so forth with the police and public works. So I recommend that the town simply deny their request until they get annexed into the town. Simply as that. I mean, we paid enough in taxes, especially last year, if you remember. So we don't need any additional taxes by these people. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Debbie Perhaska. We have a house in 1316 Ark Royal Court where we reside in Sunset Ridge. We also have a home in Windfall, and that's where I got the letter saying it's within 500 feet of the house for the neighborhood. And my concern, as I listen to people and watch the development, because we're newbies, if I can say that, we're 5-year people from Maryland, D.C. area. And I've watched a lot of the construction, and behind our house, which was woods when we moved in, are now villas. And as the builder went along, they were granted the right to take the land from a 2-foot to a 10-foot. They had to do it to build these villas. Guess who's flooding? We are. And the house next to me, and the house next to me. And we've gone back to the builders over and over. Not our problem, that's the topo. No, we never flooded before you built those. And it has hit us hard, and we're having to, they're not going to help us. We have been told we have to put in our own drainage system. We have to take it to the pond. It's affecting the pond. So I think as the new developments are approved, that the committee really looks hard at what it's doing to the ground. And if you're requiring the builder to raise parts of the land, what it's truly doing to the houses that have been established. My husband's a builder, and he argued with the engineer, and he says, "You're going to flood us." No, it's all going to work out. You watch. Well, guess who's left with the bill? We are. So just consider that when you're going back to them and telling them these are things that are going to happen to people's properties. Well, it happened to us. And we thought we were in a safe zone, and we thought it was going to be okay. I can't take her out back. Her wheels go down in the yard. It's so wet. Those are the kind of things I'm dealing with in a house that I bought and fixed up 5 years ago. It was an investment for our future, and the yard is ruined. So you're fine. And the other is the traffic. When we moved, again, this is 5 years ago, and I knew the development was coming, and I know it's going to be both in Ocean Isle and Sunset because I'm the divider. I'm 904, and I've got houses in both. And 904 is a disaster since I've moved there. And what I look at is trying to get out of my neighborhood, and then Sunday church across the street. Forget it. Is it a light that needs to go? Do we need another light? I don't know. But if we're building more, what is going to happen to this 904 corridor? And I see it. I mean, living where I lived and traveling in D.C. to the Hill every day, I was in traffic galore. Hey guys, you're getting there. You're getting there. So just look at the path of traffic and look at the water damage.
Could you say again the address of the house that gets flooded?
I'm at 1316 Ark Royal Court, which is, I'm Ocean Isle Beach, Bill Clark Builders, and then he built the villas, which I guess are Sunset Beach.
Yes.
And I am Ocean Isle Beach address. But those villas flood us. I mean, literally flood our backyard. It's unbelievable. And when I say flood, I'm talking about over a foot of water, and I can walk through
Thank you.
Yes.
Appreciate that.
Yes.
Thanks.
Anyone else?
Good afternoon. Dennis Stumfel, 1334 Jazzardo Court in Sunset Ridge. Jim McKee expressed the concerns I think that most of us in Sunset Ridge have concerning the traffic, the infrastructure, especially things like we're assuming that there's going to be folks that are going to be our ages who are retiring coming here that will tax the ability in terms of getting medical care, dental care. If they're younger folks, it's going to tax schools that are in the county. I've written to the county. I've written to you folks. I'm not going to go through all that. You've heard it. Jim McKee said it. I'm not going to repeat it all. My caution, though, is I'm originally from southern New Jersey, and I saw what happened in the coastal areas. Sea Isle City, Ocean Isle Beach, the overcrowded areas, the roads trying to evacuate. 5 years after some of the larger developments were built, and I'm not against development, and I understand the tax issue with the folks there. I really don't care about the tax issues. That's something that you can deal with, whether they annex or not. But I don't want to see you folks in a position where 5 years from now, you look back and scratch your heads and say, why did we do that? That was a dumb decision. This is what we should have done. Because at that point, you can't undo a development. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anyone else?
In the back row.
Good afternoon. I'm Roz Dolan. I live in Sea Trail at 627 Eastwood Park Road. I'd like to see the council stand with the current approval of whatever the number is, 1,040 single-family homes, plus commercial, if that is included in the plan, which includes healthcare services and offices. We have, 1,040 single-family homes is enough, and no more multifamily. We have enough multifamily in our other communities, which, of course, in Sea Trail. I'd also like to ask Logan Homes to adhere to a no-burn policy, as Riptide has done in Sea Trail. We have too many people that live and play golf and enjoy outdoor activities within that area, and the burning of whatever the limit is, 500, I don't know, is not enough. I think they need to adhere to a totally no-burn policy. It can be done. It's more expensive, but it can be done, especially when we're in a community that is already so developed. But I think the biggest thing is that no burn, and then also, as everyone else has said, the infrastructure issues. I'm concerned about traffic, but that ship has pretty much sailed, I think, and it's going to continue to be a problem. I'm more concerned about emergency medical services, medical facilities. It's hard to find a doctor that'll take new patients already. I don't know what Novant and some of the other facilities are looking at, but someone needs to be looking at our healthcare situation. I think that's it. Thank you so much for listening to us, your constituents, and I hope that you'll take our opinions in mind when you make this decision.
Thank you, Ross.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak?
I was in the back room and I wasn't going to speak, but I think there's one thing that needs to be reiterated.
Could you repeat your name and address,
I'm sorry.
Please.
Christy Garnett, 7640 Front Street, and I also have a home at 410 4th Street on the island. I wasn't going to speak. Everybody else has covered everything that's legitimate. You guys have not, there's nothing new I can add other than the planning board's against it. I think pretty much all of Sunset Beach residents are against it. So if you do approve this, I have lots of questions as to why, and just gives one more reason for myself and a couple of others that I have heard from since the April 1st meeting to challenge 3 of you next year during the elections. So I suggest you do not approve this.
Anyone else?
Hi, everybody. Richard Dysinger, 704 Fairway Drive East, Sunset Beach. I want to thank the man for the nice compliments about the planning board. Far be it for me to turn down a compliment. Couple of points that I want to make. First off, in the best of all possible worlds, the planning board hoped that Logan would come and negotiate. And we refused approval, far less as a refusal to approve, but it was more a notification that the applicant, given the opportunity to negotiate, we were willing to spend the next 2 hours to sit down and grind through all the concessions that we felt needed to be made. And they refused. So I was hoping today's meeting, we would see their presentation and then be allowed public comments. I look forward to see if they've amended their aspirations at all. This plat's going to be built. And Logan Homes, I think, has an opportunity to improve on what's 1,040, 7,500 square foot lots, no amenities, to my understanding, no affiliation with a planned community. That's not great inventory. And I think they're going to have some difficulty selling it. So I think the council is in a far greater position to negotiate and say, let's get to 1,200 additional households. Let's commit to a no burn policy. Other developers in this community have done so. There's no legal standing to enforce that, but honorable people keep their commitments, and I think that's something that we can require of them. And then the other smaller issues are minimum setbacks. Let's adhere to those and show us something that's going to improve on what exists. Right now, if you don't approve this, they cannot reapply for another year. So they're either going to wait for a year and reapply, or they're going to build what's already approved. Neither one of those is a great outcome in my view. That plat's going to be developed at some point. And I think the hope is that Logan will come today and show us something that is an improvement and reflects the sentiment of this community. They hang their hat on this land use plan that was part of a community-driven process in 2017. And it would be the cruelest irony to see that as the basis for approval when what they've proposed is universally, I probably received 150 communications during the meeting process. Not one person communicated to me, hey, Richard, we think this is a good idea, you should vote for it. So I hope Logan comes forward with an improved proposal for the conditional rezoning, and we get something that's better than what's sitting there ready to be built now. And if that's the outcome, it will be a good thing. The conditional zoning process was designed to allow for a developer with their reasonable aspirations to build homes, to create a compromise with the community based on having negotiated with the community. If that's the outcome, I think we'll get to a good outcome. If it's not, then I think it's up to the town council to say, unless you're willing to negotiate, the answer is no.
Thanks, sir. Speak. Okay. Next, go ahead, ma'am.
My name is Joan Lynch, and I live at 7032 Bonaventure Street Southwest. I agree with everything that Jim McKee had to say, but my question is, there is a parcel of land that was offered to the church. If the church refuses that parcel of land, are there any restrictions as to what can happen to that parcel of land? And also, if they're so community-minded, why don't they just donate the land to the church instead of selling it? Thank you.
Anyone else?
My name is Susan Forrester. I reside at 1250 Neptuno Court, Sunset Ridge. Also have property at 900 Gray Egert Circle, Sandpiper Bay. We have obviously many drainage problems in our neighborhood with stormwater. We moved our house in Sunset Ridge in March 2020. And when we moved in, when we turn on our faucets, like the kitchen sink, we'd have a good flow of water. Now it's about the size of my finger for maximum. And we're definitely seeing water pressure problems in our neighborhood, in our house. Also, one of the things that it's been coming here for about 16 years before we bought, and it was such a nice environment. We had trees, we had animals, it was just a nice beach town environment. Now it's just, they're mowing down, they don't save the trees. Just this muddy ground that we see. There's the animals. What about the birds in the trees? When those trees come down, those nests, they kill the birds, they kill the squirrels. I see fox in my yard. Deer are displaced. There's more accidents now with animals involved. We share this planet with the animals, and I feel like that we need to take that into consideration, environmentalists, to take that we do share the planet with the animals. Also, trees bring us oxygen. And I think a lot of people, the greedy dollar, people are not thinking about the things that really matter in life and what that we do share this planet and we're not alone here. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Anyone else? There's no further. Council, do I have a motion to close the public hearing? Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all. Now we will be moving on to part 2 or part 3 on the agenda. The L&H Angels Trace Holding LLC conditional zoning presentation. So the people with Logan Homes are now welcome to come up. Yes.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of the council. Before I speak, do we need to afford staff an opportunity to introduce the topic, or you want me to just delve right in? Okay. Okay.
Whatever you do.
All right. Very good. Thank you. I believe we have a presentation. My name is Sam Frank. I represent the applicant, L&H. With me here today are representatives of the landowner.
Are you looking for a microphone?
Tim Long, my colleague, Madeline Light, and our civil engineers, Matthew Haley, and Sophia Jones. If you have any questions as I'm speaking that you think better addressed by an engineer or better addressed by the owner of the land, you won't offend me in the least, please stop me and ask. This has been an evolutionary process. We originally submitted the application more than 6 months ago after significant engagement with the community. And the plan that we have to propose to you today is the final step of that evolution. And it's certainly fewer homes than we started with, but we also think it's a much better design than the one that we started with. And we appreciate the commentary from the planning board, the comments from folks we heard through our community engagement efforts. So overall, site's 396 acres, give or take. It's comprised of about 9 parcels. It was acquired by this landowner in October last year. Currently, that land is zoned MR3. And there is a existing subdivision plan, preliminary subdivision plan that has been approved for that site. The land is surrounded on the north, the west, the south, and a small portion of the east by the town of Sunset Beach. It is today in the extraterritorial jurisdiction of the town of Sunset Beach. This is a depiction of the current preliminary site plan. Contemplates 1,034 single-family lots. They are almost identical. It is designed to deliver a very homogeneous style of housing at a very high volume, big number. We can do better.
Would you prefer that we not ask you questions as you move along? Because I don't want to break up your process.
I don't mind at all. Please do.
Mayor, does that work, or would you? What does council want to do? Wait till the end, or
ask a question?
Ask a question. Okay. All right. I don't have one right now, but I just wanted a clarification as we move forward.
From my perspective, I'm happy to honor it. Thank you. Yeah. The evolved site plan that you see on the screen today now contemplates a total of 1,504 residential units and a total density of 3.8 residential units per acre. Importantly, it also includes significant mixed-use components, incorporates a commercial use, a variety of commercial uses in the northeast corner, a section of the land dedicated for religious purposes, a portion of the property to be dedicated for civic purposes, and amidst the residential uses, a much, much greater diversity of housing options. So instead of, common price point, over 1,000 single-family homes that are of similar size, similar price, and similar availability to the members of the community, we've incorporated a wide variety of types of homes. Some large single-family homes, some townhomes, some multifamily homes, and some age-restricted multifamily homes. That diversity of uses is exactly what is contemplated in your future land use plan. Mr. Dysoner, in his comments to you, made reference to that plan, and I want to respond to that. That was absolutely a plan that was established based on significant community input. It is also the guiding policy document that dictates to landowners what the town would like to see. To put it more simply, when we start on a development project and evaluate what would the best uses for this site be, that is the beginning of our conversation. And frankly, it's the end of our conversation too. That policy document tells us what the town would like to see, and we respond to it by designing to it. That is exactly what we've done here. Now, this plan, as I'll go into more detail in a little bit, has tailored down some. We thought we'd kept it pretty compact when we originally applied, but we heard the planning board comments and comments from the community that it was too many homes. And so even though the future land use plan contemplates a much greater density than we originally proposed, and an even greater density than that we're proposing today, the essence of the idea that the comp plan contemplates, that you would have a diversity of housing options, these next couple slides are intended to give you just an idea of the vision. It's difficult when we're looking at a two-dimensional drawing, especially at this point in the design phase, to be able to demonstrate what this is actually going to feel like. And so these next set of slides are intended to achieve that purpose. This is a developer with a long history and significant experience at developing good communities. They absolutely include amenities. They need to. That's a core component of what we do. And what people who live in these communities desire to experience. And so, again, these are not intended to be literal architectural depictions of what will be built at Angel's Trace, but they are a very similar style, character, and quality of what we had planned to build, and that gives you a good idea of what to anticipate in terms of the feel of the community. With regard to the specific houses, again, I'm showing you examples of homes that have been developed in other similar communities by these parties to give you an idea of the level of fit and finish, quality, and type of home that we contemplate here at Angel's Trace. Once again, the future land use plan is the beginning and the end of our analysis, and it's the most significant factor for yours. Your very first question as you analyze whether or not to approve this rezoning is it indeed consistent with our future land use plan? Again, we feel that it absolutely is. You've identified this as a medium density residential area. The desired uses include single family residential uses, two-family residential uses, townhomes, and age-appropriate retirement housing. The future land use plan contemplates a maximum or desired density for single-family detached of 5.8 units per acre. As this plan has been tailored down, we are now proposing less than half of that, 2.5 units per acre for the single-family detached. The density contemplated in the future land use plan for the multifamily, for the attached component, is 11.6 units per acre. Again, that's the desired and recommended density in this area under your future land use plan. Our plan contemplates 10.1 attached units per acre. The overall density that we are proposing is 3.8 units per acre, which is slightly less than you would have with an R10, the maximum density you'd have with an R10 zone. As noted in the staff report, and as I've alluded to, this type of develop is absolutely encouraged by your fundamental policy documents, specifically encourage a variety of housing types to meet the needs and desires of current and future citizens. Our proposed plan offers all of these housing options. We also incorporated a subtle reduction in the height requirement. The future land use plan contemplates up to 50 feet for certain buildings in the commercial. We've made a commitment on the conditions to reduce that to 47. So just a few examples of what's changed about the plan from the time that we applied to the time that we present this final and evolved plan to you today. We increased the rear setbacks from 10 to 20 feet. We increased the side setbacks from 5 to 7.5 feet. Increased the lot sizes. There are no longer any 42-foot lots in the plan. And now the average lot size is greater than 8,000 feet at 8,160. On the chart there, you see both the median and the average lot size on the original application on the left and what's currently proposed on the right. As you can see, each of them have grown by about 15%. As I mentioned, UDO height requirements.
Excuse me, Sam.
Yes,
I want to make sure I'm on the right page with you.
Yeah.
Did you just state that your proposal for Angel Trace has a side setback of 7.5 feet?
Yes, sir.
That's between houses.
Correct.
So you'd be 15 feet between the houses.
House to house.
House to house.
Yes, the way you measure
That's not
it.
what the drawings show.
Yeah, that's.
Mine show 5 feet is the setback from the property line to the structure.
We were previously at 5 feet. I'm going to turn around and look at my engineer to make sure that I haven't misstated this.
We're giving.
Is 7.5 feet. If there's a type on it,
Okay, I think it's stated in a couple of different in text as well as, I mean, I went to the drawing as the gospel, and it shows 5 feet.
And you're absolutely right that
That's huge.
The prior plan reflected 5 feet.
Yeah.
And it may be that in the rush to revise our plan and get it submitted to you in time for this meeting.
Yeah, I'm looking at today's the
that we missed
26th of
reference.
April.
Yeah. Let me state absolutely and unequivocally, we agree to a 7.5 foot.
You guys understand that?
Yeah. A 7.5 foot minimum side setback.
Just pointing out, sheet 1.1, the sheet index for Angel Trace and the side notes talks about single-family building separations being 10 feet, not 15 feet.
Okay.
So the notes which were critical to our concerns
absolutely
are not up to date.
Yep.
Not, or at least not reflected to what you just said. That's.
I understand, and I apologize for that inconsistency. And let me state again, absolutely, that we understand that your approval will carry a condition that the side setbacks will be at least 7.5 feet.
Okay, and that's measured from the eaves.
Yes,
and the overhang.
Under your code,
Okay.
it's measured
Okay.
from. Exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yes, sir. No, and we heard that comment from multiple members of the planning board, and heard that comment in the public hearing from multiple members of the public. We've taken it to heart. We didn't want to reduce the number of single-family homes as much as we did, but in order to get that 7.5 foot setback, we needed to. So that's why you see that number increased.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking. I apologize for the inconsistency. Talked about the height already. Open space, the original proposal had way over the required amount of open space, but we heard some comments from the planning board that they preferred not to see the very narrow strips of open space, and so we reoriented things to incorporate larger areas of open space. Your code requires 15%. We have 28.5% gross and over 17% net open space on the plan as it's currently proposed.
What does that mean, please?
Oh, sure.
Between the gross and the net, what is?
Yeah, I'm going to ask Matt to help me so that I don't misstate. Some things count and some things don't for the net.
Matt Haley with Cape Fear Engineering. So the way that open space is defined in the UDO, there are certain areas such as stormwater ponds that cannot be counted toward the calculated open space. But when you consider the areas of ponds, the landscaped areas around those ponds, the wetlands and other areas that are going to remain undisturbed, the effective open space is approximately 29%. But when strictly calculated per the UDO, it is approximately 17%, which is greater than 15.
Thank you.
All right, you're very welcome.
Let's see. Yeah. One of the other specific directives from the planning board was they said that they would like to see some areas of open space committed to be maintained in natural condition. The thought there was for greater protection of habitat for wildlife. That's not something that's in your code, contemplated in your code, but something that we were willing to do. And so what you see here are specific areas of the open space where we've incorporated a commitment to maintain those areas in a natural condition. Buffers.
Is that, just to be clear, a lot of that is along the Calabash River bed? Is it
the stream bed?
Yeah, the stream bed.
Yes, sir.
Particular.
Yeah.
Calabash Creek, yes.
Yeah.
Calabash Creek.
Which, you know, we perceive to be the highest and best opportunity for wildlife habitat. Again, that being the motivator behind the comment from the planning board. So, buffers, code requires 10 feet. We've proposed everywhere to be 3 times that at 30 feet.
Good. Can I pose a question?
Yes, sir.
Because and I think you and I have talked about this before, particularly along Seaside Road, where you show a 30-foot buffer, which is great. If the NCDOT, as a part of the traffic impact analysis, requires deceleration lanes or other widenings or appurtenances for that road to facilitate in and out access, would you still have 30-foot added to that, or are you, or would that, let's say it's a 10-foot or 12-foot decel lane, would that make your 30-foot buffer reduced?
Unless the requirement for the decel lane came in after permitting and construction had started, which would be very unlikely, the 30 feet would be set back from the new property line on the inside of the
I mean,
road.
that could have a huge effect on your developable land, though.
Has some effect, sure,
Yeah.
but we don't know. I mean, standing here today, we don't know where decel lanes or other traffic improvements may be required, or what of our land the DOT might choose to take. And so, your point's well taken, but that is a risk that we just have to incur at this point in the design process.
So you won't come back then and say, we couldn't put the 30-foot in because the DOT imposed a requirement that we could not have foreseen, so therefore we're going to make it 10-foot.
We cannot.
Buffer.
So the site plan that you would approve as part of this rezoning contemplates that 30-foot buffer. We've made a commitment on the conditions to include a 30-foot buffer. And so only in the unlikely scenario where the DOT takes our land after final permitting and approval and construction, that's going to have to be taken into account in connection with our construction drawings.
So that really hits a key checkbox for when the traffic impact analysis is in fact completed.
Yeah. Can I go for a clarification? I mean, just most of us can anticipate a greater amount of traffic and likely deceleration and acceleration lanes. So, I mean, my question would be, at this point in time, are you planning that there are going to be those lanes when you look at that 30-foot buffer?
We have every expectation that the DOT is going to both require us to contribute cost of traffic improvements, and that the DOT is going to recommend that they take some of our property to do it. The specifics are not things that we dare guess at. And so I suspect, have we designed with any turn lanes in mind? We can't, right? Because I mean, without knowing the length of those lanes, the location of those lanes and the like, for the sake of this design, and again, this design is not for construction. This is a site plan solely for the sake of land use. And so many aspects of the design will be further refined through the design, engineering, development, and construction process. I guess what's critical on this topic is we've committed to 30-foot buffers. And so if our land gets smaller, then between now and the time that we do get construction drawings approved, we have to take that 30-foot buffer into account.
Okay, that's clear enough. That's
Yes, sir.
yeah. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Council, if I may, I know there's some questions about the 30-foot buffer along the road frontage. And, I don't know if those have been addressed. You guys have talked about that, but between Matt and Tim, there was some discussion about, that's going to be commercial frontage and whether or not, that 30-foot buffer would be prohibitive to, commercial visibility, et cetera. I just want to make sure that sounds like you guys are all on the same page, though. 30-foot all the way around, regardless.
Well, I don't know where come on up, please, Matt. I'm not sure exactly where the buffer applies.
Okay.
What we're saying is where there is a requirement for a buffer, we've increased the size of it, but I don't want to overstate where buffers are applicable.
But you've said that there will be a 30-foot buffer around the entire project.
Yeah, and that's how the plans were previously showing it, but through conversation with Wes, the concern was that the town's street yard requirements and overlay requirements and parking lot landscaping requirements should supersede the buffering that we would propose in those non-single family areas. So the plans that you have in front of you should show a 30-foot buffer where the residential exists, and the buffering associated with the multifamily or non-residential uses would be addressed in accordance with the UDO requirements at time of a site-specific plan submission. That would possibly include, more than the 30-foot, but we'd have to meet the town street yard requirements, parking lot landscaping, et cetera. We don't want to have two conflicting landscape requirements that may not necessarily jive with each other, just based on the different types of uses in those areas.
So, Mr. Corbett and Council, and thank you for bringing this up, because I think this is a point that requires some clarity. They are proposing at present a 30-foot exterior property line to property line, not along a street lot line, a 30-foot buffer. Along the street frontage, they would defer to a street yard requirement, the standard parking lot setback requirement. However, if it's the position of the council for that to be mandatory 30-foot period, then in addition to all those other requirements, then that will need to be addressed. And I think that's something that can be further discussed. Does that make sense?
It does. And where the 30-foot buffer is shown for particularly single family, that's key. That's a different animal when you're talking about a buffer for a commercial property.
Yes, sir.
Because there's other things that impact that, such as parking, and we talked about the overlay that's mandated, the gateway overlay requirements that are mandated on Seaside Road for you. So
yes, sir. Understood. And
that makes sense to me.
And agreed. Yeah. It's all right if I proceed? Anybody have any further questions about that before I do? Okay.
No, thank you.
Absolutely. Heritage trees, some significant and important trees that we've protected on site, identified for protection on site and designed around. We proposed a condition that will use commercially reasonable efforts to preserve the heritage trees by designing the developed site to avoid placing any roads or building envelopes in locations where heritage trees are currently situated. We accomplished that by splitting the road in places and establishing pocket parks as a way to preserve those trees in a way that also integrates them into the community. Here are a couple examples.
Question.
On the plan depicting that.
Okay, it shows up there as the question, but where on these charts that we've got in our package, they have the red circles with the red dot in between. Those are heritage trees, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and so what it looks like what you've done around each of those heritage trees is created an open space area.
Yes, sir.
Is that I'm reading that accurately?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure. So, and that's for every one of the heritage trees, that specific type of tree. Okay.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question about trees?
Sure.
And I know you're going to be addressing the burning situation. I won't go there yet.
Well, we can talk
yet.
about it. Yeah.
Well, you opened the door here to tree preservation, tree mitigation. I looked with interest in your proposal where you were not suggesting, but seeking credits for mitigation for street trees.
Mm-hmm.
And the way I look at it, and I think I do have some background on the planning board and as to how we just rewrote the tree ordinance, section 3.35. The idea is to preserve trees. And I think I applaud you for the heritage trees that you have in fact saved and reshaped things. At some point in time, we need to talk about the drip line versus the critical root, because that can make a huge difference in the success of that tree surviving the construction. But particularly where you talk about credits for street trees to count as mitigation, and that these trees that your heritage trees that you're saving, let's say it's a 24-inch live oak tree. You're implying by your packet here, your application, that you want credit, a tree credit for that 24 inches. And you're also saying that the canopy and street trees would count towards that credit. And I don't think that that's the spirit of our UDO for tree preservation.
Okay.
There is credit given when a heritage tree is saved. You can get mitigation credit for a heritage tree, but not
Could I correct the record?
Not a street tree.
If a tree has to go, a heritage tree, because there is a building lot and a house is going to be in the way, and I'm trying to buy the lot next door to me, let's say, and I want to build a house on it, I can take that tree down because I have a reason for it. I have to show why I'm taking that tree down.
If they remove any heritage tree, any of those inches removed have to be put back on site.
But they're not removing these; they are preserving them, which I applaud. But to then turn around and give them credit for that and say that there's another 24 inches of trees that would be required on the property that they now do not have to supplement, I think is not in the spirit of section 3.35.
It's possible that you and I are not seeing eye to eye, but basically if they keep a 24-inch tree, they can offset 24 inches of tree removed elsewhere on the site. And that was when that was put into place, that was the incentive in the current iteration of the rules to encourage folks to try to keep these larger trees. Mm-hmm. They don't get credit for keeping a smaller tree, a regulated tree. And they don't get credit for street trees. They are asking for that as a voluntary condition.
Well, and that is one of the two things that I'm objecting to right now.
Sure.
And you and I can have the discussion, the theoretical discussion about what the spirit of and I certainly, you have more experience than I do. But to get credit for them for street trees, I think is a reach. Because the street trees need to be, they're there for very specific reasons. Quality of life, they're there for aesthetics, they're there for requirements for vegetation. And to get credit for them because you would have had to plant them anyway. But to say that because I saved this 24-inch tree, and I'm planting street trees, that virtually there will be, you could compensate for all of the mitigation that would be required under the spirit of our section 3.35.
I don't believe we can, just on the numbers, do it all with street trees. But I also would note that the streets are an awfully good place to put the trees. That in connection with construction and development of homes, some trees are removed and some trees are planted. Mm-hmm. The street trees are not only a place where the trees can thrive, but where they can integrate directly with people who are involved in the community. And so from my perspective, street trees have high value and therefore ought to deserve recognition for it. I respect absolutely that your opinion's different.
Okay. I'll research it some more, but I've researched it quite a bit just prior to this meeting.
Okay.
And it's
My understanding with regard to the heritage trees that we preserve that are within the street, that we're just asking to play by the rules that are in the code today. We're not asking for adaptation.
There's also another question too about where you plant that. I believe our UDO calls for the street trees to be planted on the house side of the sidewalk. In other words, not between the sidewalk and the curb and gutter. And I'd have to, and I think you're showing them as all between the sidewalk and the curb and gutter.
And that's the kind of detail that I alluded to earlier, that, on a zoning site plan, we need to give you an idea of the general orientation of things, and certainly the density and intensity of uses and the like, and demonstrate that we've planned to accommodate having street trees, but getting down to the level of detail whether the street tree would be on the left side of the sidewalk or the right side of the sidewalk.
Well, but you went to that detail in your package, so
we did. We can show and you're right. I guess my point is not that we were right the way we drew it, but that we'll have to get right before we have construction approval on that.
Well, but the council needs to understand, we do understand that the conditional zoning is a blank slate, and it's a negotiation between developer and the town council.
Fair enough.
So that we have the ability, we can't let you put something in that was not a use that was already approved in the town.
Right.
But we can, within the conditional zoning format, we can agree to paint all the houses blue. There's all kinds of, as long as it's reasonable, we can agree to it. I just don't want something slipping through that is contrary to our UDO, because you happen to note it, and it might not be something that we picked up on.
Got it. May I consult with our engineer just for a second on that point then?
Sure.
So I can.
And council, that's one of the reasons why I wanted a list of everything they were asking for that was an exception, rather than having it just as a part of the package.
Isn't
May.
Is that the exception? That's the exception list.
Yeah, but it's not on there. The exception I'm talking about.
We're not asking for an exception on that point. To the extent that the plans show that level of detail with regard to left to right side of the sidewalk, it was not intentional, and I suspect that the plans show them on both sides.
I've interrupted your flow, and please resume if you can, unless somebody else in council wants to beat on this one.
One specific request from the planning board was that we incorporate a pollinator garden, just a new one for me, and something we're glad to do. It is not something that's contemplated or required by your code, but a concession that we are certainly willing to make. And so we proposed a specific condition to that effect. The stormwater design, I want to talk for a minute about drainage. And then I'll talk about this specific concession and condition. That stormwater management and drainage are competing interests, right? Stormwater management is designed to slow the flow of water so that sediment can fall out of the water, and the water that ultimately reaches the waterway is cleaner. And drainage is designed to remove water from the site as quickly as possible. When you site design a new development like this, you are required to accommodate both of those interests. The land that exists today is largely undeveloped. That is to say, it basically drains as it chooses to drain without human intervention. In connection with the development, not only will we design appropriate drainage facilities to direct the water away in an effective and appropriate manner, but we will also do so in accordance with state law that says we need to treat that storm water before it reaches the natural waterway to reduce the amount of sediment and other pollutants that are carried to the waterway. And I explain this because we incorporated a condition here that will design to the 50-year storm. So that's way above and beyond what your code requires. We heard comments from the planning board. We heard comments from members of the public who said, we'd like to see that. We'd like to see that change. And we've accommodated it. But it's important to me to note for everybody's sake that designing to the 50-year storm is not the solution to the problem for drainage. It's the solution to the problem for making sure that even cleaner water makes it into the waterways and that you can accommodate without overflow in your stormwater management system. And so that condition, again, voluntary, incorporated in response to comments we heard from the planning board members. So traffic pattern. Today, as the site plan exists, is what's shown on the left side of the screen. And in the future, pursuant to the plan that we've proposed here, is what you see on the right side of the screen. There's a single point of access in and out to 904 on the plan as it exists today. Under the new plan, there are 2 points of access to 904. We also deliberately designed this with a stub out to Angels Trace Road, with hope that sometime in the future that can serve as a point of ingress and egress to the community. Through our negotiations and purchase of the land, that's also shown on the image on the right. To be clear, the homes on our proposed plan that are located in the northwest corner of the site do have the right to ingress and egress across the roads in the existing development. Now, I'm going to take this opportunity to talk about traffic. Oh, yes, sir.
Is your lay down?
On your phase one, you've got on Angels Trace phase one, which runs along Georgetown Road and Angel Trace Road in the corner. Presently, it shows almost possible that Wallace Road would enter into Angel Trace Road. Is that only for current construction and not for future?
I'm sorry, sir. Is Wallace Road, I just don't know the roads by name. Is that the road that's depicted in the bottom left corner?
There.
Okay, I gotcha. So Wallace Road is outside of our development?
Yep.
Okay, I don't know because that's beyond our control and not part of this proposal.
What about Road 28, which is part of yours further down?
Is that the one we've shown here as stubbed out to Angels Trace Road? Yes, sir. Yeah. The obvious design intent there is that in time, if that road could be opened up, that we would have a point of ingress and egress through it.
Can you explain to me what part of Angel Trace Road Logan actually owned? I know there's 3 different entities that own that whole road.
Right. Do you know? Okay, thank you. Yeah, we have and the reason I'm pausing is because I know that we have an easement for construction over a portion of it. We don't own fee simple title to any of it. And what that means is we don't own it, can't control who else gets to use it. We do have the right to use a portion of it for construction traffic to try to reduce construction traffic on 904. I was gonna delve in though and talk a little bit about traffic and road improvements. So you heard a lot of comments during the public hearing, some from citizens of Sunset Beach, several from citizens of other jurisdictions, and people in each of those categories talked about traffic, and they talked about traffic impact analysis. And I want to sort of address some of that and also open the door for conversation if you have further questions of us. First, these public roads, the 2 primary public roads, Old Georgetown and 904, are NCDOT roads. They're maintained by the state. They, like many roads in North Carolina that are maintained by the state, could be bigger and could be better than they are today. As a state, we have not done a good job in responding to population growth by building and improving roads. Fully acknowledge that. From our perspective as a significant landowner adjacent to those roads, goodness knows we would be grateful if the DOT would do more with them. The practical reality in development is when you want to put a curb cut onto, we get a driveway permit for an NCDOT road, the DOT, and you have a development of any size at all, the DOT requires you to do a traffic impact analysis. That traffic impact analysis is not a red light, green light. It's not a you get to go forward with your development or you don't get to go forward with your development. The intent of that traffic impact analysis is to identify what the DOT calls recommendations for improvements that you as a private citizen will make to the public road. And of course, if you want to play and you want to continue to develop your land, you adhere to those recommendations and do whatever it is that the DOT told you was desirable. That is a pretty thorough process. Pretty thorough isn't enough. That is a very thorough process. It involves the traffic engineer for the landowner doing an analysis and an assessment. That analysis and assessment includes in part what are the trips generated by the new development, but also in large part what is the status of the roads and what sort of improvements would they most benefit from. The DOT engineer then reviews that, comments on it, sends it back. There are multiple steps back and forth. It takes in general 12 to 18 months and at least 6 figures on cost to get through a traffic impact analysis. The end result is an explanation of what improvements the DOT wants the private developer to make to the roads. Note that in the absence of private development, those improvements don't get done anytime soon. That private development serves as a catalyst to get those improvements made to the DOT roads. Now, don't get me wrong, they'll get to it eventually, but the priority for our local DOT roads falls far behind those of the larger, more significant roads throughout the state, and frankly, those that are in areas where greater political influence can get the roads improved quicker. I think that's an important nuance because while I heard comments and concerns about additional cars on the road intertwined with a proposed requirement that doesn't exist, that you should require a TIA prior to development, it seemed to me that the sentiment was we need to get this fully studied so we can decide whether or not it's okay for the development to go forward. And that's just not what the process is about. What you're deciding today is not should the development be built or should it not be built. What you're deciding today is what's been proposed here, the combination of all the things that's been proposed here, better than what's currently entitled to be developed. I'm going to pause there just in case anybody has any questions about traffic. Are there any additional notes or curiosity from the council at this time on that topic?
Can I ask
Yes,
a
sir.
question? My mic on? On page 64 of our packet, which in 64, 65, those pages deal with the approximate traffic that you guys have done a study on already.
Yeah.
If you look at the current detached housing development, it's going to have 1,034 homes. You're guessing pretty much 8,655 daily ins and outs of that development. Am I correct in saying that?
I'm trying to get to my chart so that I can verify what you're
good, go ahead.
I do, but for some reason it's not clicking forward. So,
okay.
Mr. Hargraves, if you would bear with me just for a second.
Yeah, take your time. Take your time.
Thank you. All right, thank you. All right, I now have data in front of me and I'm equipped to answer your question, even though I can't put it up.
Is it page 64? Is that what you have also?
You're looking at the daily trips.
Yes.
The total daily trips. Yes, sir.
Total daily trips.
Yep.
8,655.
That's right.
With the current plan of the 1,034 homes.
Yes.
All right. Then you have on page 65 and 66, you have the 3 phases of your development. The 3 phases of your development.
Yes, sir.
Now, when you look at the total daily trips there, you're dealing with a total now of 12,859. Just adding those.
Yes, sir.
Up.
And we, I did a composite for the presentation that shows that number. Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's right.
All right. All
Yep.
right. So obviously, yeah, there's about 4,204 added vehicles with the Logan Home development as opposed to the development that is approved already.
Yes, sir.
All right. To me, obviously, that's a lot of extra cars flowing out on the roads, okay? And I know you're trying to you have 2 entrances and exits. You'd love to have a third, I know.
Yes, sir.
And that third might be a huge key to this whole thing as far as Angels Trace Road is concerned. Now, I don't want you to comment on Angels Trace Road today. You certainly don't have to.
Understood.
But I think what you've got and what people here are saying, you've heard people say this earlier, is that there's a real issue regarding traffic flow, transportation on the roads. We've got an NCDOT in North Carolina, which will tell you doesn't have an awful lot of money. It's tough to get improvements, no question about that. But the use of Angels Trace Road is a tremendous possibility for mitigating a lot of the problems that I foresee, and I think some of the people here foresee in the future as far as transportation is concerned, and getting on the streets, getting off the streets, and just congestion on the streets.
That is
around that area is pretty important, I think. So in the back of your mind, I would put, I think this has got to be addressed somehow in the final plan. Somehow. I don't know how you could plan to do it, but I think there needs to be some sort of solution moving forward. Go ahead if you want.
May I?
Kick in, Peter.
I want to bootstrap onto what Mr. Hargraves said. The fact is you're building more homes than was allowed by right under the coastal communities previously approved use of the whole property. And it's about 50% more. And I'm not going to dally on percentages. What I'm interested in is exactly what Mike was saying. It is increased traffic over what our present UDO, and it's not even our present UDO, it's our past UDO, because they came in right under the wire for the 7,500 square foot lots the day it was approved by the prior town council. But putting that aside, once they check that box, then that right transfers with the land. You bought the land, so you can put in, without even any sweat, put in 1,034 homes. When you look at that plan, the coastal communities plan, it integrated what is there now because it was all owned by coastal communities. You bought a section of it, which now you're calling Angels Trace Development. The way the roads flowed through there before would have allowed some of the people in the property that you now own to access Georgetown Road. And because it was one big development that was integrated in with the previous coastal communities property, which you are now involved in building some of those homes in there, and I think they look great. So it is apples and oranges. To say that 1,040 around by right is, and now you're going to add another 500 units to that. It's not just the 500 units, it's the fact that you are at least portraying, and I have to take you at your word, that you have no ability to access this property other than through Seaside Road. And where the previous 1,040 homes, the coastal communities got there by right, they were going to be accessing it through their present community and through Georgetown Road, and also out on Angels Trace Road. That just happens to be a reality, I guess, now that you don't have the ability to utilize Angels Trace Road or to utilize access through, I think it's Westward Way, or whatever that road is that's a north and south road.
Yeah. So there are several things I would like to say in response to both Councilman Hargraves and Councilman Larkin's comments. I'm going to respond to the last one first, and then if you don't mind, I'd like to go back and respond to the others as well. Today, we own the land that is entitled to build 1,034 homes. A small section of those homes in the northwest corner have the right to access through the existing neighborhood and to Old Georgetown. The remainder of the homes do not. They have one point of access, which is over to 904. And that is what it is. We negotiated the deal the best way that we could. and we got the most effective solution that we felt like we could in connection with acquiring the land. You mentioned Mr. Larkin, Mr. Hargraves, and Mr. Larkin mentioned it also, that Angels Trace Road is a critical piece of the equation. I agree. I think it would be fantastic to the extent that there's something that we can do in connection with that becoming a road. We are absolutely on board and interested to see that happen. Another critical step that's going to help with regard to traffic flow is the completion of the Calabash Bridge.
Completion of what?
Calabash Bridge.
Okay.
Yeah. Which, and I'm quoting only what the DOT has published. You can't hold me accountable for what they say about their deadlines, but they tell us all that they anticipate that'll be done in the first quarter of 25, less than a year from now. Assuming that is true, or even sort of close to true, that bridge will be reopened long before anybody moves into a home, apartment, or commercial space on this site. With regard to the relative traffic impact, what's allowed today by right, what's contemplated in your future land use plan, and what we're proposing, I'd like to talk about those numbers for a second. So on the screen now, you see a chart that summarizes all three of those alternatives. The first line is the existing entitlements, and we're showing daily means the total number of cars over a 24-hour period. Peak hour is the way that traffic engineers talk about traffic impact. And so it's less significant if you have over a 24-hour period the same number of cars going in and out every hour. That never happens. The traffic problems arise at the time that people travel the most. And there are some uses that drive people to always use the same hours. And so if you have a daily of 5,000 for one use, you might have a peak hour AM and PM that's different for competing uses. And so we've included that data here too. Existing entitlements daily of 8,600, AM peak hour of about 625, PM peak hour about 894. What that's telling you is that people spread out the time that they leave in the morning and have a relatively common time that they come back to their home in the evening. The next section there is the proposed development. And as you can see, that's broken down into phases. The combination of all of the residences, 1,504 residences, produces about 8,200 daily trips, less than the number of daily trips that are created by the residential that's entitled today. Now you may ask, how can that be? How can you have 50% more homes and a lower traffic count? The answer is the size of the home. And to some extent that some of our homes are age restricted. So a smaller home generates fewer car trips than a larger one. An apartment generates fewer car trips than a smaller home. And an age-restricted apartment generates fewer trips than an apartment. So, and I don't make these numbers. This comes from the engineers, their ITE guide. It's not an opinion. It's an established set of data. And
quiet, please.
And what those engineers tell us is the homes that we're proposing are going to generate less trips than the trips that would be contemplated by the residential homes in existence today. That said, we've also proposed a mixing of uses, right? Exactly what the town would like to see. We've incorporated commercial use, we've incorporated the civic use for the town, and we've incorporated religious use. Those uses are what's shown in phase 3, the third line of that chart. And that adds about 25%. If you incorporate those onto the total, then you have about a 25% increase in the traffic count over what's permitted on the existing entitlements today. Also important, I think, to compare that to where would we be at with traffic counts if we built to what the future land plan says is the desired density. If we just built residential and built a variety of residential products at the density that's contemplated in the future land use plan, what does that traffic count look like? And as you can see, that one's about 25 or 30% more than the total that we're proposing here. How does this data matter? So ultimately, your conclusion about whether this is a good development for the town, whether this is consistent with your future land use plan and the like, doesn't really hinge one way or another on traffic. You're not responsible for the roads yourself, and it's not a direct criteria for consideration. It is always a concern and understandably a concern. All of us in Southeast North Carolina drive on overburdened roads day in and day out. You cannot make a decision, as some here encouraged you to do, to close the door behind the people who just moved here and say, you got in time to enjoy the benefit of the public road, and you have more of a right to that public road than someone who hasn't built their house yet. It's simply not fair, nor the appropriate role for this council to take that responsibility. I think that covered what I wanted to say in response to your comments, but I also welcome the opportunity to answer any other questions that may arise based on what I just said about traffic.
And I would say, I'd like to just in a couple sentences make it clear that I know that you keep saying that by right you could build 1,034 homes in there tomorrow. It's 7,500 square foot lots at the setbacks that were in our previous UDO, not in the one that exists today. Because today it would be 10,000 square feet. But Coastal Communities got in under the wire before we updated it.
Yes, sir.
When our planning board approved that preliminary plan, which then provided that by right that you have now inherited with the property, all of that was interconnected, and those roads showed connection to Angels Trace Road. It showed connection to Wayfair Drive. It showed connection into Wallace. It gave other opportunities for the area that you're now talking about under this conditional zoning to be developed. So I think it's unfair to compare 1,034 homes to what you want to do. I like the idea that you're having a diversity of types of homes in there. I think that's important for our community. But you happen to have inherited, because of the limits of the property you bought, where you seem to be landlocked, where you can only access onto Seaside Road. What I approved sitting on the planning board was an overall community that had many more ins and outs. And you just don't happen to have the benefit of that because you only bought a portion of the territory. Coastal Community controlled all of that territory when they came before the planning board. So I think that we need to keep that in perspective. Not saying that it's not going to be a good development that you're talking about, but I don't like the constant comparison, if you will, because it is apples and oranges.
Yes, sir. I understand your point. And forgive me, what we can develop versus what we're asking you to approve to develop is really the only benchmark that we have. And so I don't mean any disrespect by referring to that.
Well, I know you keep referring to the land use plan, and that is a valuable document, but it is just one of the criteria that the planning board and the town council uses in evaluating the appropriateness of your conditional zoning application.
And just in my simple way of looking at things, as I said before, with your plan as opposed to Coastal Communities plan, there's over 4,000 more cars coming onto those roads. Keep that in mind. See what you can do. I mean, it's going to be crucial in the end.
Understood. If you'll bear with me just a second, I'm going to get back to where I was.
I'm surprised you allowed questions.
No, please. I think the dialogue is far more productive than me just giving a presentation. I'm grateful for the opportunity. You just have to give me a second to get back to the spot I was in. All right, talk about stormwater, points of ingress and egress. Okay. So just as a brief reminder, where I am in what I wanted to share with you and present to you today is explaining the things that we adapted on the plan based on the comments we heard from the planning board. We originally had a commercial use down in the southeast corner of the development. Self-storage is a pretty high demand commercial use. There are ways to do self-storage that are attractive from the road front and that are effective and useful. Nonetheless, we heard the comments from the planning board who told us literally do anything else and we would prefer that to self-storage. And so we did. And in our subsequent discussions with the town, we also came to understand that you have a shortage of space, that you're looking to renovate your police station, that you don't have enough land to do it. And therefore, we suggested that this could be a good location for such a police station. Really appreciate you raising that possibility. As you can see, we've incorporated just that into the plan. The homes that are in that pod that surround the site for the civic use will be organically reasonably affordable homes. And we really like the way that marries up with the use adjacent to it for the town's benefit. Commitment to annex. So probably ought to start talking about that at the beginning, but it's important. There were a couple comments that we heard in the public hearing about taxation or the absence of taxation with services, and wanting to know for sure that the land will and ultimately be part of the town. We are fully prepared to make that commitment. That's a condition that didn't take us long to decide to agree to. We have asked that the annexation coincide with the time frame where there's actually real residents moving in, commercial residents and residential residents as well. And so we ask that we reach an agreement that that annexation be achieved no later than 30 months after the approval. I believe the right way to do that is with a development agreement. Had conversations with your staff about how to achieve a development agreement. The date that we've asked you to set for your ultimate decision on this plan is designed to coincide with a time frame that would allow for you to consider a development agreement at the same time. That would give you an absolutely certain, in addition to the zoning condition, obligation from the landowner that the annexation will occur at the time, by the time that we said it would.
Can I pose a question? And it
Yeah,
really,
sure.
well, it's to you, but it's to Wes. To wait 30 months, and the question's been asked by our citizens, why the 30 months? I'll let you answer that. But and I think I understand the reason. It's you'd rather not pay taxes until you get something up there that's substantial. It's because you're not making any money while you're building a house. But annexation laws, rules of engagement have changed over time in the state of North Carolina. And what I would hate to see is, and again, this is for you, Wes, I'd hate to see something happen in the next 30 months where the rules have changed. And all of a sudden it's like, whoops, we can't annex. We can't, you've chosen because of situations not to do it, and the law supports that. So to initiate annexation now and then have the town work with you on when you can in fact be taxed, I think is a more reasonable way, in my mind, to approach it.
It was my understanding that you can't delay. If they annex now and we don't want to tax them on their unimproved property, that by North Carolina law, we're not allowed to do that.
That's generally correct. You have to apply property taxes effectively, uniformly through the community. So we can't customize. We can't pick Logan and say, hey, you don't have to pay taxes, or you guys are on council, you don't have to pay taxes, etc. You can understand some of the reasoning for that. For annexation, the longest you can delay it, statutes, is 1 year, and that would be within the state's fiscal year. So if this development were approved July 1, you could delay it till June 30th. There is, as the applicant alluded to, include reduce this writing in further detail in the development agreement. I similarly agree that this is one of the biggest concerns for me, making sure that we've got an effective way to see this happen. And I think some of that is going to have to be further fleshed out as well. Yes, sir, I believe that's.
Does a development agreement take precedence over state legislature if they change their mind on how to do annexation?
There's special legislation that's authored that precludes that development agreement, then yes.
Are you thinking about the town of Leland and the moratorium on their ability to annex there?
Not really. I mean,
okay.
What I'm just thinking is the one thing you know, 30 months in a business world is a long time, and a lot of things can happen. And so the question is, you know, what if something happens to Logan Homes in the next 30 months and the annexation hasn't been completed? Then we have a lot of construction that's been taking place, but we don't have the tax benefit to go with it.
The development
That's a
agreement-
hypothetical. I mean,
Development agreement runs with the land. So if we were to unexpectedly sell the property or involuntarily sell the property to a lender, this agreement and the obligations with it, just like the zoning conditions, run with the land. And so change in ownership would not in any way reduce the obligation to annex the property. I think that we can get to a place where the petition is in well in advance of the actual action on the annexation, and I'd like the chance to talk that through with your counsel. I want to be clear though that all of this is belts and suspenders on top of the condition. The condition to the zoning that says we got to do it means that if we don't do it, or whoever owns the land doesn't do it, that the land is out of compliance with zoning, and that means no more building permits, no more COs, no more occupancy permits. And so the zoning condition alone is a heavy hammer. The development agreement will bolster that by establishing yet again the same obligation, but in a way that is more firmly spelled out as to who's going to do what when. And that development agreement is of record. It's recorded in the Register of Deeds. Rest assured that everything that we're trying to accomplish here is designed to achieve annexation. Don't have any interest in avoiding it. Just want an appropriate mechanism to delay it during the very expensive time period at the beginning of development.
And you have to deal with our attorney with you to hammer this out.
Yes, sir. By the time we are back in front of you on June 18th, it is our intention that you will be considering your vote on this zoning and also your vote on a development agreement that has been vetted by and negotiated by your counsel.
And I don't think you can answer this, but is Logan willing to negotiate that?
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. It also gives us a vehicle to address conveyance of the police property land to you. The police station land to you. That's a little bit more awkward to address in a zoning condition. And the development agreement gives you a really good way to make sure that we're good on our obligation and commitment there to dedicate that land to you. And so we'll address both those concepts in the development agreement.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Anybody else have any thoughts or comments or questions about annexation before I? Okay. Reduced density. Yeah. So again, when we started, the plan we originally proposed, we genuinely thought was a compromise position. That was with 1,700 homes, and we heard you, and we have responded to the comments from the planning board and reduced that significantly, more than 10%. So you've now got a proposal that has just over 1,500 homes and a density that's below 4 units per acre. The size of the lots, you said get rid of the 42-foot lots. We got rid of the 42-foot lots. So you can see.
And what would you replace that with? Because again, the charts say 42 foot still.
Yeah, the chart that's on the screen now gives you the lot count for those.
I can't see that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And we don't have this.
There are approximately 150 47-foot lots, approximately 250 57-foot lots, and approximately 250 72-foot lots.
Can you repeat that, please?
Yes, sir. Approximately 150 47-foot lots, 250 57-foot lots, and 250 72-foot lots.
Thank you. And I guess I could have turned around and.
No, that's okay.
But it's.
Madam Clerk, I'd like to ask that we incorporate our presentation into the record. Thank you.
Yeah. So we're talking about 650 single family lots now.
No, there's more than that
1,
total.
2, 4.
What's the gap there? You know?
15
The
K.
duplex.
It's
Gotcha.
the duplex townhouses, there's a lot of categories.
Yep,
or a number
exactly.
of categories.
This only speaks to the detached single-family homes.
Okay.
Yep. And again, the average lot size is now substantially greater than it was. It's at 8160. Townhome areas incorporated deliberately to be primarily internal throughout the community. As you can see, there's three areas of townhome development. They're labeled with different labels, and that's a distinction that goes to whether the lots are subdivided as opposed to whether multiple homes are developed on a common parcel and then leased. The use is similar in that there's a townhome use.
I saw that you had removed one of the townhouse developments that you had in there originally. And are you supplementing it with the 80 out closer to Seaside Road?
Yes, sir. That's right. Yeah.
Supplementing it with what?
Those in the vicinity of the police station.
Okay.
Right. Multifamily, focused around the civic and religious use. Two different types of multifamily contemplated here. 192 age-restricted apartments, and then 288 garden-style or market apartments.
And while you have that up there, that drawing, it brought something to mind. When the mayor and I met with you as a two-on group,
yes, sir,
privately, I had posed the question about the religious application for that 4 acres of property. And I think, at least I understood you to say that that was really virtually going to be a done deal by the time we got together.
Yes, sir.
Is it a done deal?
And it didn't close yet. We expect it to close within the next couple of business days.
Because some people were asking, and I don't think it's certainly not our right to say that you need to donate that to the church. You're in business to be in business. But I've always had that consternation as to if the deal did not go through with the church,
sure,
then what would your use of that property be? And I would hate to sit here and just talk about that one piece of property after we've approved, because we're looking at a big picture here.
Absolutely. We are so certain that it will close that we've removed the variable on the use of that land. So in the unlikely event that for some reason it doesn't close in the next 48 hours or doesn't close, we'll be stuck with a piece of land that can only be used for religious purposes.
Which is somewhat of a broad definition, but yes, okay.
Yeah. By the time you are voting on this,
okay,
in 45 days, Tim left. I'll be dumbfounded if that answers.
We haven't officially scheduled that meeting yet, but
understood.
Yes.
Understood. And we'll update you. We'll confirm. And obviously, that's publicly available information, but we'll confirm with you when title has transferred. Commercial areas deliberately located near the visible intersection and in a place that they should serve not only as commercial amenities to the folks who live in this community, but also commercial amenity to those who live nearby in Sunset Beach and those who live nearby in Brunswick County and Ocean Isle as well. The types of uses are yet to be determined. Of course, we're a long way away from being able to offer space to tenants. But what we hope and envision for that is the types of uses listed on the screen there. Eating establishments, office, microbrewery, professional service establishments, pharmacy, retail sales, that kind of thing.
Your access in and out of there is going to be a challenge, but I'm sure you've thought that.
Understood. And we evaluated the possibility. One of the comments we heard from the planning board was, look more closely at vehicular access from the interior of the neighborhood. And because of the environmental situation in that area, that stream bed, it was irresponsible to try to put a vehicular crossing. We have incorporated pedestrian access,
which is that's
from within the community.
That's important.
Absolutely. No, and as you know, one of the primary benefits of mixed use is that people walk to a place rather than drive to it. And so the hope is that exactly that will happen for the employees and the customers of those businesses. Religious institution, we just talked about this. And you have my commitment. We'll confirm with you when title has transferred hands, and that transaction is on the cusp of being complete. Civic use, this is a new concept since the planning board meeting, and incorporates a now 2-acre piece of land for the town's use for its future police station.
Well, the town hasn't really decided what the use would be.
Fair enough.
That's
Fair enough. And I don't mean to make any commitments on your behalf.
okay. Thank you. But we
Only to offer to give
Yep.
you the land to use as you see fit.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. The land use summary, just to try to give you an idea how we incorporated the other uses around the primary residential uses. And it's also a nice breakdown there in terms of acreage. And so, again, the development plan today that's on the table contemplates 100% single-family detached residential. What we're proposing here, 80% of the land is dedicated to that same use. But with the other 20% of the land, we're able to incorporate a meaningful diversity in housing options and some additional mixed-use type uses to really blend out the site in a way that's more complementary not only to itself, but also to the town. The planning board had several thoughts and comments for us. We met with them multiple times. At the conclusion of those discussions, we did indeed elect not to request a third meeting. It was difficult for us to see a path forward that would result in further negotiations leading to a reasonable compromise. Nonetheless, we took several of the comments that we heard from the planning board at their last review of this plan and changed the plan. We took 130 homes out of the equation. We incorporated the civic use street side so that the townhome use would not be nearly as visible from 904 in the southeast corner of the development. And we incorporated the 7.5-foot side setbacks and got rid of the smallest lots. Those were the most significant talking points that we interpreted and understood from the planning board. These changes make what was a good plan even better. We're grateful for the interaction. We appreciate the input and are very proud of the development that we are proposing here to you today. There's absolutely no question that this is consistent with your applicable policy documents and that it is an improvement over 1,034 homes that look the same and are on a similar size lot. With that said, I'm grateful for the opportunity to answer any other questions you may have and respectfully request that you vote to approve this rezoning.
Any member of council got any more questions?
I've got some questions on paving.
Painting.
I've got a couple of 5-minute break.
I can certainly agree to that.
Okay. I do have a question.
And I'm going to withdraw that because I think during it's getting into the minutia, and I don't know that that's really going to be something of benefit to the council or to the public. So I could wait. What I would really like to see is the same 2 on-group meetings that we had before. I think they were extremely productive.
Absolutely, yes, sir. Yeah. We welcome it. It's a purely legislative proceeding, and those meetings are appropriate, and I think I agree with you, beneficial, and look forward to the opportunity to discuss some of that minutia further with you.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
I noticed that sidewalks are used 4 inches, and it's going to be throughout without an additional inch when you get to a driveway, correct?
Yes, sir.
Are you putting in concrete driveway?
Do we know?
I don't know for sure, but I mean, every other low project that I'm aware of has traditional concrete drive.
Because if you're putting in concrete driveway, they're usually 5 inches all the way to the street. That would eliminate the difference of 5 versus 4 going across the driveway. Just a thought.
I understand your point, and all I can say is I need to take that back to my client who's no longer in the room. But thank you. I appreciate the suggestion.
There's even and I agree with Mike, that's something that we certainly don't want to put sidewalks in. I mean, I disagree with the 4 inches that you've gone to. I think it should all be 5. And then with the concrete driveways, that eliminates my 6-inch request at the driveways. But the pavement section, you are, I think, aggressively taking more of a value engineering stand, or not a value engineering stand, but a redesign stand, where you want to go in and have an engineer evaluate the subgrade bearing capacity,
yes, sir.
Rather than putting in what we require as a town road, which is 8 inches of graded aggregate base with 2.5 inches of asphalt over top of it. you want to go to 6 inches of graded aggregate base with 2 inches of asphalt over top of it. And I just look at that as being, I'm an engineer, I've done subgrade compaction tests, but I could do one today and then it could rain tomorrow, and it could change as you're actually installing and facilitating the installation of the GAB and the ABC and the asphalt. So I'm not comfortable with reducing our cross section, even though you say that you'll have an engineer that will stamp that, saying that yes, I've looked at this and this will perform adequately.
So you cited the minimum standards, both from your code and what we've proposed. And what we've proposed is a scenario where we can build to the existing site conditions, in our opinion. And fundamentally, we don't want to take away good subgrade solely for the sake of making room for new subgrade. And this may be one of the minutia points that you mentioned that you'd wanted to discuss later, and I'd like to talk about it with you further. I'm especially reluctant to keep talking when Mr. Corbett's asked for a break.
But let me put it another way. You presented us a tremendous amount of information,
yes,
and you've gone through a lot of compromises, and I'm not in a position to sort of go through my checklist and your checklists and go for compatibility. So I like the idea that Mr. Larkin had of getting back together on the 2 council and 2-man teams, having consultations with you to go over some further refinements and make sure that we're comfortable.
Look forward to the opportunity to do so. Yes, sir.
The other thing I'd just like to add, is that the TRC, our TRC committee, it's Technical Review Committee that the town has,
yes, sir,
and has worked with, that's fire and police and public works and all that, have made statements, and paperwork that we have, it's on pages 14 through 19, as far as all that stuff is concerned. I just like to make sure as we get into these 2-man meetings that we've looked at these things and we know exactly what you don't agree with. On take the fire department, for example. They have some, I think, very important suggestions or mandates, state mandates, on some of the things you must do with this development, in this development, to make sure that, for example, the roads can handle a 75,000 pound fire truck and all that kind of stuff. And so just want to go over those things when we do meet 2 on 2 and make sure, understand what you approved and what you didn't approve as far as the technical review committee is concerned, because I think some of these things are very, very important.
You bet.
There's also some things too, bootstrapping up of Mike Hargrave here with roadway widths. I see that you've, on both the primary and the collector, or the local and the collector roads, you've reduced it substantially, several feet on each one. And I'm sure you're aware of the regulations that require 26-foot wide roadway at a fire hydrant. So I just don't want that to sneak up on you where all of a sudden you're designing a 24-foot road. And it's like, whoops, I can't fit these 2 houses in here because on certain distances north and south of a fire hydrant, there needs to be a wider road so that a fire engine can come up next with the pump panel next to it and put the fire out in my house.
Okay.
That's 26 feet.
Yes.
Yeah. You also have not addressed one of the issues that many of the citizens brought out, the no burn question that they had.
Thank you.
And the original was about 10 feet, or your compromise was 500 feet from the nearest structure. The 500 feet from any structure, and the comment made about Sea Trail and Riptide is that they did no burn, they hauled all the debris away, which is a more expensive process. Nowhere in there was mentioned that our fire chief is the one who ultimately makes the decision on what the wind conditions are doing. Correct. So that if fire is being burnt there and impacting homes 500 feet away because of wind conditions or whatever it happens to be, he has authority to tell you to cease and desist at that point in time.
And that's the
That's-
deal, which is probably why your code only requires 50 feet
Yeah.
of separation, because even more significant than the distance is the control that you just described that the fire marshal holds. Nothing about our condition of increasing the 50 to 500 eliminates that. Of course, we're still playing by the rules and accommodating whatever the fire marshal tells us.
I think it might be critical for, I'm going to read what the code says. It says objectionable smoke that could impact surrounding residents in the sole judgment of a fire official or town staff designee shall be caused to require immediate extinguishing of the fire.
Mhm.
So,
And let me be clear, that's
because 500 feet may not be enough on certain conditions.
No,
So
agreed.
Yeah.
But what we've offered here prevents us from putting it between 50 and 500 feet and trying to satisfy that condition. We've got to be 500 feet away, and we've got to be in a situation weather-wise that we are creating offensive smoke that leads the fire marshal to tell us to put the fire out.
Even at 500 feet, we can tell you to stop.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's-
Mr. Nern, yes, sir.
Two with the group meeting. We brought up.
I don't know that you're.
We brought up the burning, and you say you dig a low spot and somehow contain that. I forget exactly. Can you go into that?
So my client, Mr. Logan, is the one who answered your question then, and I'm going to do the best I can to answer it as he did for you then. That their practice is to dig a pit, the debris goes into the pit, and then they utilize fans to keep the heat internal and cover the pit while it's burning. That is not to say that it doesn't produce any smoke, not by any means, but it produces far less smoke than a pile that's on level ground and just ignited and had things thrown into it. And so it's not a careless process by any means. None of that trumps the fundamental obligation, which is if we are more than 500 feet away and we produce smoke that is irritating to someone enough that the fire marshal says you got to put it out, we got to put it out.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
You got anything further?
No.
John, you still need your break?
No, I'm
No,
ready
we
to
don't-
go
we
home
don't.
now.
He's held it.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next up would be the issue of scheduling a special meeting for consideration of the council in regards to this. Do you have a date in mind, or are you ready to go with this, or what's the pleasure of the council?
Just what have we been doing?
June 18th?
June 18th, yeah.
June 18th, 10 o'clock in the morning. Is that
Yes.
still suffice to everybody?
Good.
Mike?
I've got it in my calendar already.
Shannon?
Did you say 9 or 10?
10.
10. Should be 10.
I've got 10 till midnight.
Yeah.
That's okay with you, right?
June 18th.
We're
10
doing it for
a.m.
you.
What's the relative looking at? All right, do I have a motion that we will have a special meeting on June 18th, 10 a.m.?
So moved.
Second.
In regards to the conditional zoning?
Yep.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, if there's nothing else, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I
Second.
have a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.